Standing by on the line right now, big fan of Bananarama, is Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi. Good morning. Probably
Good morning.
not, though. Do you remember that song? Do you remember that cheap remake?
I remember the song. I could have never told you who was the artist.
I know all the answers because I have them written in front of me, and that helps.
Bill's good at this contest.
Yeah. Don't you wish you had all the answers for everything written in front of you?
It would be nice. Yeah. Anthony, I was telling my boss the other day that we're talking about the delay, and we had to use the delay a few times because of a few F-bomb things that popped in the other day. And I said, I only wish I had the delay to carry around with me at all times. Because there are probably about 100 things I can think of right now, things I wish I could take back. And, well, that doesn't exist in real life, just in radio life. So
you only get one chance.
One chance is all you get. Okay, I want to ask you about the president's comments in the press conference the other day. And also, yesterday it was interesting because it seemed that the Congresswoman came out at first and said she agreed with the president that going after both sides was the right thing to do, but said she had not watched the press conference. Then later in the day issued a statement where she really she pulled all that back a little bit and denounced racism and KKK and white supremacists. Your take on all of it, starting with your take on the president.
Well, I was happy to see the president's statement on the weekend. I thought his initial response was not strong enough, and then he came out with a very strong response that I think was very good. And then the press conference, which was supposed to be about infrastructure that he gave, was about 30 seconds on infrastructure, and then it was just an open mic for him about the events in Charlottesville. And he backtracked. And, the issue that I have is when you try saying that both sides are to blame, you're giving cover to the KKK and the white supremacists and the racists that are down there who were causing violence. And when you wake up in the morning yesterday and you see the news reports that David Duke is cheering what the president said, there's a real problem. You have to be very clear on these kinds of matters that there's absolutely no place in this society for these groups, for these neo-Nazi groups, these KKK groups, the white supremacist groups. Only one side was responsible for killing a woman this past weekend. Only one side was burning torches and screaming anti-Semitic and racist statements. So you have to be very clear in condemning that and not allow it to gain a foothold, because we've had a very troubled past in this country with those groups, and we don't want them to feel any more comfort operating in 2017.
How do you? What do you say then to someone who says, "Well, listen, both those sides came to fight. They both had clubs. They were throwing things at people. Both sides were in the wrong." What do you say to what do you say to people?
Well, again, there was one side that showed up there first to really spread hate, to spread racism, to really cause trouble, and that was the white supremacist group. Those groups were there, and what ultimately happened was those groups were the ones responsible for killing that young woman by ramming a car. I heard a news report yesterday on TV where they called the incident with the ramming of the car a car accident. Yeah. And I thought that was no accident. That person intentionally drove their car into a crowd to do harm and ultimately kill the young woman who was there to really march peacefully in protest of the message that was being spread by those groups. And that's, what I tell people, that there's one side that was responsible for committing a murder, and they were there to cause harm.
It's interesting. I saw one of the interviews with a white supremacist. Actually, we listened to it after the show yesterday morning, and he tells a completely different story that says that this is the story, and this is the problem with today, is when his statement is, that's what the media is telling you. That this rhetoric where you can't believe anything the establishment or the media tells you because they'll come out and say they're lying to you. The media is lying. That's not what really happened. What he says happens is that the protesters were attacking his car, and as he was trying to escape,
He had no choice.
He had no choice
step on the gas.
but to step on the gas, and ultimately the young lady was collateral damage. How do that's? There are people that believe that. There are people that are going to say, "Yeah, that happened. That's how it went down."
Well, I would not want to be making excuses for white supremacists or neo-Nazis or the KKK. It's very clear from the reports that I read and actual video I saw. There was one group there saying Jews will not replace us from the world.
Yeah.
There was one group there burning torches and screaming racist chants. That's who was making those statements down there, and by trying to minimize that or make excuses for that behavior, you're legitimizing their behavior, and it's wrong. We've had a nasty history in this country with those groups, and we don't want to make them feel any more comfortable today. And what was nice, this weekend is you saw Democrats and Republicans come out and denounce white supremacists and the KKK, most of them. Some were a little slower to do so. But most Republicans and Democrats came out as one voice denouncing that kind of behavior.
Yeah. The president, former President Bush, both Presidents Bush were out yesterday along with military leaders that represent our military, all coming out and denouncing racism, denouncing white supremacy, denouncing the KKK. Can you just, last question I have for you is, why did they have to come out? What reason are they coming out and denouncing racism? I mean, do you blame that on the president?
Well, the president is the leader of the country. He is the one that people look to in times of trouble to be that calm, cool, collected hand to guide the country through periods of unrest. And when your statements tiptoe around an issue and aren't clear, then others feel the need to come out and fill the vacuum to make sure that it's expressed very loudly and clearly that white supremacists and the KKK and neo-Nazis have no place. That kind of behavior has no place, and those groups have no place today or at any point in our nation's history, for my opinion. But we have to make sure that they don't feel comfort, and right now, many of those groups feel comfort. And you just look at, like I said earlier, David Duke expressing that he was very pleased with the comments that were made. So,
just quickly, I'll tell people you put out an infrastructure plan yesterday, and I'm kind of out of time at this point, but obviously that's all up on your website where people can take a look at it.
Yeah, and that's just part one. We have a lot more to talk about in regards to infrastructure, but the more federal investment we can have in our local roads and bridges and sewer and water treatment plants, the less money local taxpayers are going to have to come up with to have to fund those kinds of projects, which many communities cannot come up with the funding to do.
All right, Assemblyman, thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi.